One Piece chapter 1055 just dropped, and it may have given us some of the biggest revelations in all of Wano. Needless to say, last chapter shook everybody, and I think this chapter is definitely doing the same thing. You guys already know how it is, spoilers up ahead, consider yourself warned. Last week, after seeing Momonosuke's failed attempt at Kaido's blast breath, I assumed that we would definitely see a real one by the final war. And that prediction came true much earlier than I expected. And it looks like he released a pretty effective one too. Maybe not effective enough to take out an admiral of the Navy, but definitely giving us some inclination that he will be a crucial fighter in the final war. Also, I think it's a super big flex on Greenbull's part to be able to disarm people like Yamato, Nekomamushi, Denjiro all at the same time. It really did give off the impression that he had some sort of advantage over Yamato, the Scabbards, and Momonosuke. It seems like the festivities on Wano are still going really well, and we even see at the end of the chapter that Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei were ready to step in and fight if they needed to. But as we saw in the chapter, all that was needed to scare off an admiral of the Navy was the presence of Shanks being on Wano. I feel like we've gotten more Shanks screen time in the past two chapters than we've gotten in the entire series since Luffy's flashback. And I honestly feel like it won't be long until we finally see that reunion between the red-haired pirates and Luffy. Some of you guys might have missed this, but Oda very sneakily put in Uta during Shanks' part of the chapter. If you guys look super closely, you can see at the edge of these three panels that there's a silhouette that resembles greatly the upcoming character in the movie One Piece film Red. Now this to me is Oda legitimizing Uta as a canon character. I don't think that he's ever directly stated that she is a canon character, so seeing her here tells me that we should definitely pay more attention to the movie when it comes out. It's still important to remember that this is not a canon movie, but will have canon elements within the movie. It'll carry some certain truths about Shanks that we don't know yet, and although we don't have a way yet to differentiate what will be canon versus what will not be canon, I'm sure by the time the movie comes out, we will all know exactly what parts will be incorporated in the real story. It's the same thing that happened with One Piece Stampede, where we finally got the revelation that the final island is not Raftail, but Laugh-Tale as it always was intended to be. So not only am I now more hyped about Shanks' true power, but I'm also very impressed. The bar that I originally had for Shanks has risen after seeing what he did to Greenbull in this chapter. However, I'm also impressed with Greenbull and Momonosuke, since I think this chapter really showcased these characters' strength. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the meat of this chapter, and that's the revelation of an ancient Wano and possibly the answer to a decades-long question. After being in the basement of the flower capital and looking at the poneglyph with Odin's now revealed father Sukiyaki, Robin and him make their way even further below Wano to find the road poneglyph, accompanied by Law, who we also know is interested in history and the secret of the D-Clan. While walking down the stairs to this road poneglyph, there's these little glass windows or boxes that reveal the ancient Wano hidden under Mount Fuji. The discovery of this Atlantis-looking Wano is another reason why I think Wano is considered so important to figures like Big Mom and Kaido. Since Jack was a fishman, it's pointed out that he was able to travel underneath Wano and see the poneglyph for himself, so it makes sense that he would report the city back to Kaido as well. If Kaido knew about this ancient city, about Pluton and the road poneglyph all buried under Wano, it makes sense why he would consider it so important. And I believe that his consideration for how important Wano was as a country was the reasoning behind him staying there and occupying that territory, to make sure that nobody else could get their hands on Pluton or that road poneglyph. However, the more interesting thing to me is the revelation of this ancient kingdom, a kingdom that Sukiyaki states was a great country 3 times the size of current Wano, and a kingdom that was formerly known as the City of Gold, I guess now the Lost City of Gold. Now, like I've said in the past, I still believe that the gold that was previously on Wano is a part of the treasure on Laugh-Tale. I always had my suspicions about Wano potentially being the ancient kingdom after hearing about this ancient City of Gold epithet that was originally given to us, but this chapter just puts the icing on the cake. I now am extremely confident that the name of the country that Professor Clover was about to say before being shot by a world government agent was the ancient kingdom of Wano. The ancient weapon, the closed off borders, this lost city, it could all explain why the 5 elders are so scared of Wano's strength. We've heard the 5 elders say before that the reason why they don't interfere with Wano is because they don't know how to assess the strength behind the walls, and that the samurai of Wano are very strong and not people to be reckoned with. Now, I know Greenbull states in this chapter that one of the main reasons they haven't interfered with Wano was because Kaido had obtained it as his territory. Even though I think that is a factor, I don't think it's the main reason for their lack of interference with the country. I think Wano is considered such a great threat because they know at one time Wano was considered a superpower, and its hidden nature behind its borders is why they still consider it a threat today. Now, this ancient kingdom eventually vanished because these walls were put up as borders, and that prevented rain from escaping, leading the original land of Wano to be completely flooded. When it comes to these walls being put up around Wano, where do we think they came from? Could it be that maybe Oda revealed this forest fruit around the same time he revealed the borders of Wano to show us that this power is somehow connected? I mean, unless there's another devil fruit out there that grants the user the power to control or create rocks, I do think that the forest fruit is the perfect fruit for this specific purpose. It's been described to us as nature incarnate, the power to control the earth around the user, so it seems kind of perfect. Sukiyaki states to Robin and Law that he's never personally seen Pluton himself, and that the only way to release Pluton is to tear down the walls around Wano, which of course would lead to Oden's original plan of opening up the borders of Wano for Joy Boy's arrival. This could also be why Momonosuke felt it might not be time yet to open up the borders of Wano, because if Oden's logbook informed Momonosuke of Pluton being beneath Wano and that opening up the borders will release that power into the world, I could understand Momonosuke being scared of that power getting into the wrong hands. Whatever Oden found on Laugh Tale that would convince him to open up the borders of Wano and release this ancient weapon, I think will eventually have to come to Momonosuke as well. Without that knowledge, Momonosuke might not be able to correctly assess the situation yet, and thus lead him to not wanting to release Pluton out into the world. I think the rest of Wano could go one of two ways. The first one being an event happens before we leave Wano that ends up changing Momonosuke's mind, and we see the borders taken down and Pluton revealed. Or two, we see the Straw Hats take off for the next island, which I still think is going to be Elbaf, and Pluton is saved for when it's actually needed, since the power is probably going to be important in the final war. I think at this point I'm leaning a bit more towards the second one, since it kind of looks like Oda is telling us that there's still a bit more story left to be told before we finally get some of these revelations. I think Oda is showing us this with Shanks leaving Wano, as well as making Sukiyaki say directly that Pluton cannot be revealed yet. The pot is definitely stirring now, and we've gotten a hell of a lot of new information, but it's still just a bit too early to reveal everything. Pluton will absolutely be needed for the final war, but what would be its purpose right now? If released, what could Pluton do for the story that wouldn't just be a really cool reveal? If you guys have an idea for how the first option could work better than the second, definitely let me know in the comments, but it seems to me that Pluton is something that will be revealed during the final war, not something that's revealed when the final war is just peeking over the horizon. I could absolutely be wrong though, and I kind of hope I am, because if Oda can pull off revealing Pluton in the next few chapters and have it make sense for the story, I'm all here for it. I think I speak for everybody when I say that I am ready to see what this ancient weapon looks like. The reveal just needs to make sense. Now for a new segment of Sunlight Alliance chapter reviews, I'm going to rank the top 3 most hype moments in the entire chapter. And after hearing my top 3, feel free to put yours in the comment section below. So for my number 1, the most exciting part of this chapter to me was the revelation of ancient Wano underneath Mount Fuji. I am a huge sucker for lore, and this chapter definitely delivered on that end. For number 2, you already know I'm gonna have to put Shanks scaring off Greenbull with just his presence alone, and that one panel of Shanks looking absolutely frightening is one of the most intimidating things I've seen in Wano so far. Am I crazy to think that Shanks is the most hyped up character in all of One Piece? Every single time he's in a chapter, he just completely steals the show. I know some people aren't as excited for One Piece Film Red, but I think after this chapter, there'll be more people who are excited to go in the theater and find out more about Shanks. In third place, we have Momonosuke firing off an actual blast breath and blowing an entire hole through Greenbull, an attack that the Admiral stated could have been powerful enough to burn down an entire town. This is an extremely impressive feat that shows us Momonosuke is growing at a rapid rate, and I fully expect him to be a top tier fighter by the end of the series. And you want to know what? Let's go ahead and throw in an honorable mention in there with Uta being revealed as a canon character in the story. All in all, this was a top tier chapter. From the lore to the action to the hype, I would definitely put it as a 9 out of 10, maybe even a 10 out of 10, because I really can't think of anything negative to say about it. But let me know your thoughts, and if you want to learn how to convince all your friends to watch One Piece, you should definitely check out this video right here.